Welcome to Cookies and Careers Coffee Talk. This podcast, we talk to regular people who give advice to all of you regular people out there. I'm very excited today to talk to Rugmini Iyer on my left and Dana Hubert on my right. Rugmini is an AVP of Digital Transformation in the financial area, and Dana is an SVP of Legal Operations, also in finance. What's very interesting as we look at our job market today, and so many people are looking for jobs or wanting to always be ready to look for a job because that's what's happening in the market. What we want to talk about today is how do you prepare yourself for a change? How do you prepare yourself to look for a new job? And both of these women have changed industries. They weren't always in finance, they just happened to both end up there. So it's going to be an interesting conversation on how their journeys progressed. We hope that you get some tips along the way if you're thinking about looking for a new job or if you're even thinking about moving industries. So I'm actually going to start with Rugmini on my left here, and we're going to talk about, what your job is now and how you actually transitioned, because I happen to know that you went from telecom, then you went into finance, right? And you made a shift not just in your jobs, right, but also in your industries. You went to a medium-sized company to really large companies. So it'd be very interesting to know, how did you decide to make those changes? When did you make those changes? And then how you prepared for them?
Sure. Thanks for having me. What I have found myself do more is looking around me rather than going up the corporate ladder, because that opened up so much of learning and experiences and educating myself about what else is out there. And that came from talking to people, the colleagues I worked with. And after a while, it was mostly when either the project was less busy or when I was on a break that I actually did some thinking. I have been here this long. What have I learned? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go from here? And it was that kind of reflection and that helped me decide, yes, it is time to move on, or it's time to move on within the company I was in, within the industry or outside. I think what also helped me is having a good mentor at the companies I worked for, and it's good to sound it off, saying, I think I'm ready to move. I think I have come to a point where I don't see myself grow further, or that I have learned. Now my job is getting easy. That was the trigger point for me. My job's getting easy. I'm going to be doing this every day. Let me go learn something new. Let me go try something out.
Did you find it hard to switch industries, like to go from telecom to finance? Or
it wasn't easy, because then you are starting again, from and you have to prove yourself again. And while you're proving yourself, you're also learning about the industry, the ways of working. That's something all of last year, I honestly struggled switching from telecom, where culturally I would say was a bit more laid back than finance. So it was much faster paced. People's mindsets are different. And I'm also part of a very high performing team. So it wasn't easy, but a year now I've been in finance. I'm just so pleased with everything that was achieved last year, the learning, the job experience, the deliveries we did as a team. But yes, it wasn't easy, but it's important to have an open mindset that lets you learn, and you shouldn't be discouraged from the mistakes you make, because I think that's the best way of learning.
Right. It's good that you say that. Also, I like that you're talking about adjusting to a new job, and especially a new industry where you feel completely, overwhelmed while you're trying to learn and feel comfortable in your shoes. And I think that for our recent college graduates, as they move up in their careers and they switch jobs, that discomfort, being comfortable in the discomfort, it takes a long time to, I don't know if that it gets easier, but you know that you can anticipate it and understand that, yeah, I'm going to be a little uncomfortable in this job for a while, but eventually I'm going to be okay. So I think that we don't necessarily grow out of it, we just get used to it. So I'm going to switch the topic over here because Dana also switched industries, and I think it would be good to know how you prepared switching industries, but also about how you answered some interview questions that sort of helped you get the job.
Right. So a little bit of background with me. I started off in law firms, went into in-house, and then after I went to in-house, then I transferred into the telecom, media, and technology industry. But always, the consistency was always in the legal department, right? So that was my one consistency throughout my career. What is, was very challenging is, one of the things I see in my career is that you can actually have to be very careful of what I call job expansion, right? So you just start taking on multiple responsibilities, and your job actually grows this way instead of this way, right? So you're going horizontal, not vertical. Now, the important thing that I learned about growing horizontally is that I was actually adding skill sets to my, to my basically what I was able to do. And I think one of the things that I'd mentioned to you before is that I have a theory where you have to be very careful never to say all the time, that's not my job, that's not my job. Because what you're going to find out is that eventually you're not going to have a job if that's your go-to answer. So to switch perspectives and say, well, maybe this is not my job, but what I want to do is actually, do this project and know that I'm going to gain skill sets that I didn't have before. I'm going to meet people and network that I didn't know before. And so as I changed my perspective in that way, my expansion actually paid off because then I went from growing this way horizontally in my career to growing up vertically, and it will pay off. And I did take that into my next step from going from the technology industry into the financial industry, which was it's very different because, as you had mentioned before, there's a lot more, it's a different culture. It's not as laid back, even though technology is very, there's a lot of speed and stress that goes on with that. But there's a lot of regulation in the financial industry that you have to know about. So that was the big difference, and it was a big change for me, big risk, all of those things but it was exciting and it was a challenge. And I remember sitting in the interview, and they had asked me that question. The one thing is that you have a very, great career track record, but it's been in one particular industry. And so this is going to be a different industry. How are you going to handle that? So that question was just thrown out to me, and I was right there in front of my potential new boss, and what came to me was that I told them, the whole thing about my career is that being in legal operations it solves problems within operations. And so regardless of what industry that you're in, whether you are in technology, media, or telecom, or whether you're in financial, it is the same challenges, it's the same problems that a operational person can come in and handle. Although the product is different, it's still the same challenges. And so, and that seemed to really satisfy the question as to their concern is jumping industries. So to me, whenever I'm looking in that aspect, one of the things I always will tell other people is don't worry about your industry. Think about the problems that you're solving and that you've solved in your current job and in your past experience, and understand that those skill sets can then transfer into a new industry, because typically businesses do have the same issue unless you're going into a brand new product, which is a different area.
But it also talks about, when you think about it though, in preparing for your interviews, right, as you're switching industries, one thing is to researched the industry that you're moving into, so at least you're slightly familiar with what they do and how they define success, right? Because then you have to be ready going into your interview with, how does this company define success? So when I have my answers, I'm ready to go. One thing I always do to prepare for interviews, or tell my children to do to prepare for interviews, or people who I mentor to prepare for interviews, is have this source stories ready. So they have like a situation and an opportunity and a way that they overcame the opportunity, and always have all these little source stories, and how they resolved the opportunity, right? So always have these little source stories ready to go. So you're ready to hopefully be prepared for whatever question comes. So if you practice your source stories, you're like, oh, they're going to ask me this question, I'm going to pull the source story out, and I'll have the answer to that question. Here's a question though, is how do you know it's time for you to move on? Like you said, it's time for me to continue learning, right? It's time for me to continue to grow as a person. And then I guess you're saying, okay, I looked within the company I'm in, and I don't see the opportunity there, so now it's time for me to seek an opportunity elsewhere. I mean, is that basically, how you decided to switch industries? Is there other, or jobs even?
For me, maybe my personality, if something gets too easy, I'm not exactly bored, but it becomes very predictable. I feel I have few more years of learning before I sit back, and I just want to keep doing. So that is one indicator for me that you know it all now. Let's see what's up next. What else I can venture into. The other thing is also, I have worked for companies where for a short time actually, where the leadership, the guidance wasn't there. So you're just there and you have to figure out, So yes, you can figure out and, perform. But sometimes when the leadership is lacking, you also don't want to be lost there, because ultimately it's going to affect your growth perspective also. So that is maybe another indicator for me that, maybe it's time to move on.
It seems like a good indicator. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that those are really great points. I mean, for me personally, you actually get to a point where you know it's time to move on. And sometimes that is a little hard to describe, because you can't actually put any kind of key, indicator that, these things happen, now it's time to move on. But you do get this point where it's time to move on. And I think a lot of that, in my past, I know that I've moved on from jobs where, I didn't have any issues. Like, I didn't have any of those major, issues that you might actually, have with a manager or with the people that you work with. You can be in a situation where you have a great manager, you love the people you work with, but there's something that it's time to move on. And that's a very difficult thing to pinpoint, but it's just a knowing that it's time to move on. And when you also look at your opportunities, within your current organization, and you decide, okay, my job is continuing to expand, the horizontal way. I think this is going to be never ending, because one, you've proven to be someone who rolls up their sleeves to get things done. You've also are easy to work with. You have all these things, and someone's like, oh, we'll bring you into the project, but there's no growth. That's another indicator where, how long do you want to be on this road, where you don't want to actually start to monetize and take advantage of those skill sets that you've actually earned, and then challenge yourself in a new place, possibly a new industry, which actually can accelerate your career growth, because now you've actually taken those skill sets, monetized them, and then took a jump and went into a totally different industry. And it builds confidence in you, because you're like, I actually, took a jump, I took a risk, and I'm able to actually show how this is actually paying off, all that investment.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. So the reason I switched my job was really because, I just felt it was time to go. It was not because I had an issue with, the manager or the team or even the product I was working on. But it was just that indicator, I've been doing this, it's time to move on. Then when you have challenging days in your current job, you wonder, oh my God, did I do the right thing? But then, it does. You do get over it. But yes, I've been through that. Just wanted
I
to
think
add.
that's also pretty normal. I just think about, a lot of what we read about now is also Gen Zers switching jobs more frequently than maybe we did, but I don't think it's true. I mean, just listen to us now as, past Gen Z, let's just say that's where we are, past Gen Z. And, we all have the same actual desires, right? Is to be challenged, to find the right place, to move on. So I don't think that generationally, actually, there's any differences. I think it's very similar. And I do think also what you just said is, I made the move, did I do the right thing? And that's the other question too. Like, it's easy to say, okay, what happens if you think, oh my gosh, I didn't do the right thing? That also, how long do I do this, right? And I'm realizing I'm going to continue to try to make this succeed, but it may not be the right thing for me. And that might happen too. So then there's, at some point you say, okay, how long do I do that before I start to network and, look for whatever it is that's out there. So sometimes you do make a move and it's not the right move. And you have to take a moment to say, okay, I didn't make the right move. And now I just need to, I know it's a good thing because you're like, okay, I know I don't want to do this. So I want to do this. So I guess the next question for either one of you is, okay, I know it's time to move. What's my next step in terms of how do I decide where I want to go, or how do I even find that job?
So I think one of the good things to actually think about is, obviously do research in the industries of what you want to do, right? Go to conferences, meet people, network, and start looking into different aspects of what it is that you're currently doing. Even if don't overthink about and overthink your decision. And I think that was one of the things that I almost fell prey to, is overthinking. Is this the right thing? Am I going to make the right, wrong? Because, for me, I was actually moving for the challenge, right? So there wasn't anything pushing me out the door. And that's probably one of the hardest decisions to actually make, because you're like, why am I doing the right thing? I'm so comfortable. But even though you are going to have the thoughts that, why did I do this? And even if you made the wrong decision, it's okay, because you got out of your comfort zone. And that's the most important thing. That's always a beneficial thing, is to get out of the comfort zone. And even if you actually didn't stay at that place where you actually made that risk and that jump, you still got out of that comfort zone, which is, I think, an accomplishment in and of itself. Because so many people do stay where they are, and then their motivation, and without even know it, even their productivity, their learning, all of that starts to go downhill in their career, and it's because they should have actually made that jump. And I'll never forget the great advice when I was actually going back and forth: should I do this? Should I not? And I remember talking to people about it. And that's another thing, is talk to people about it, get other perspectives. I had one person stuck in my mind. She looked at me and she said to me, "Dana, go for it." She was like, "Just go for it." And she goes, "And if it doesn't work out," she goes, "it's okay," because she goes, "you're employable." She goes, "You'll find something, at the next thing." But she was like, "Just do it, just go for it." And that to me was like, why not just go for it?
Right.
And that's when I made that jump, and I accepted that risk and the challenge, and it all paid off.
So getting out of your comfort zone is a tip that we're providing.
Yes.
Yes, I completely agree. And I actually have a bracelet my son gifted me that says "seek discomfort." So on challenging days, I actually put it on. I do. It's just something that pushes you to go forth. But I completely agree with what you just said, and reaching out to people, getting out of your comfort zone, and once you have settled in that new job or career, it's just so emotionally rewarding that yes, I did it. Go for it are the three words I always got from my husband, whether I wanted to try a new job, take on a new course, because that's one thing I consciously keep doing is upskilling, whether it is, actually a certification or just LinkedIn learning. Anytime I would say, hey, I'm thinking about this, and it would be go for it. And once I hear that, there's no holding me back.
That's great. It's such an honor to know you both. I'm thinking, though, I am going to go back to one thing a little phrase that you taught me when you were starting to go through, should I be moving, shouldn't I, getting out of your comfort zone. I believe that one of your daughters told you to put on your skinny jeans.
I was going to say that,
right?
yes. So, yes, it was a great, and this is a great point because what
and
she
I
did,
used that.
She actually, I was overthinking my whole decision, and, because I had a lot of, I had a totally different commute. There was a lot of parts of this job. The other thing is it was, a couple of levels that I was jumping up from a role perspective. And, you start thinking like, am I able going to do this? Much bigger department, all these things, right? And I'm overthinking this. And she came up to me and she just said, you know what? She was like, you need to actually get out of your sweatpants and put on your skinny jeans and go there and do it. She was like, you're way too comfortable. And she also told me, she said, not all these opportunities, she was like, these type of opportunities don't come up every day. So she goes, you have this window of opportunity and you're going to let the window just shut. She was like, just go for it. And I was so corrected by her. And that was one of the things that I actually was like, you know what? I am way too comfortable and I need to get, into things that are going to be uncomfortable because that's how I'm going to change and grow. And it all paid off. So, yeah, I got a lesson from my own daughter.
Excellent.
And I've actually used that when I've been talking to other people or mentoring other people, and I actually have used that line.
Yes, it's a great line.
Right? Put on your skinny jeans. So
right.
I've definitely...
It's on point.
Right, it's extremely on point. So it's a very good advice. I also remember I was being offered a promotion and I wasn't sure I wanted to take it because it was going to require travel. But I also brought it to my whole family. They were just like, take the job. Like, what's the matter with you? So then I was like, okay. Sometimes you just need a little push.
Right, and your support, right? Go to your family, talk to your friends, and, explain things. And, a lot of times when you see a different perspective, it's so calming because they're looking at you. And sometimes people will actually look at you like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is a great opportunity.
Right.
Go for it. Like, you have nothing really to lose here. And the only thing you'll find when you look back prospectively is that the only thing you were holding on to was comfort. That's what you were holding on to. And so when you make that jump into a new industry, new job, new people, all that newness, the one thing that you're going to get, you're going to get growth, you're going to learn new things, you're going to get new skill sets, and guaranteed, I would say 99%, because nothing's 100%, you're going to think that you're not going to regret your decision. But you don't want to be on the other side where you regret not taking that.
Right.
And that's why you go for it.
Yeah,
Right, that's
I
another
completely
thought,
agree.
right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And there's learning in every single job and role, whether the project wasn't the best or the manager wasn't or anything, the team. But when you look back, you have to come out of that picture to look at that picture sometimes, And that's what others do when we go to our family or a friend. They are looking at it from a different angle. And that's where, like, your daughter was able to tell you, get out of those sweatpants,
Right. And it wasn't even COVID.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
Yeah. No, so there's just learning. Even the couple of years I spent at a company where I think just I left that job because I wasn't happy for several reasons, but there was still learning there. That's something that you carry forward.
Right, and that's one of the things that people should remember is that every skill that you undertake in a job can be monetized. Every skill is worth money at another position. So when you leave someplace, you're not losing out. You do have skill sets that you can actually put on a resume and sell yourself to a new company and saying, I had exposure to this is what I did this project. And there's actually no loss. Even if maybe that company culture wasn't right for you, and you went to something and you took a risk, don't let that actually make you hesitate the next time, right? Because maybe you did a little jump, you collected some skill sets, because the next one is that you needed that in-between step before you actually got to the next jump. So everything has a purpose.
Yep.
That's a good one too. So we have a lot of little phrases we coined today, right? But also, I mean, even for me, it sounds silly, but when I'm on my Peloton, one of the things I always say is get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes.
And yeah, this morning I wasn't comfortable with the uncomfortable, but I didn't quit the ride. So I'm really proud of myself. You could almost take that same thing to your career, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But also that there's skill sets in everything that could be marketed. You have to think of your skills objectively and you could market them. Put on your skinny jeans. What other phrases did we coin today? Your son's
I think
bracelet.
we say go for seek discomfort.
Seek
That's right,
discomfort.
seek
So
discomfort, that's right.
a lot of things. So one thing I forgot to mention is that our recipe today are brookies, and they are gluten-free, and they're actually, the fat in them is not butter. So these are relatively healthy and tasty. So we won't try them now, but we'll try them later. And I think we're going to wrap. So let's get our coffee cups, and we all know how to wrap this up, right? Catch you later on Cookies and Careers.